The NWSL is kind of caught in a mid-season slog, so I thought I'd play GM and blow everything up. Hey everybody, it's Claire Watkins. Welcome to this week's edition of The Late Sub. It is Wednesday, August 20th, and after a myriad of draws in the NWSL over the last 2 weeks, I decided to play GM a little bit, move some players around, and propose some trades. There are teams that have a couple of openings that I think could really put them over the top, as everyone is in the race for second behind Kansas City. And none of this is too serious. This is more just kind of creating the world I would like to see. But I do wonder if there is some motion for some mid-season excitement as the secondary transfer window closes next week. Let's dig in. So the secondary NWSL transfer window closes next week, and I think the league could frankly use a little bit of a shot in the arm after 2 weeks of many draws, a lack of true changes in the standings. We're seeing a lot of deadlocks. We're seeing a lot of straight heats, not a lot of differentiation between these teams. We are seeing obviously high performers perform high. We're seeing teams outside the playoff line struggle to move up. So I was sitting and kind of looking at all of this after this weekend, and I think there are a lot of factors to why we're seeing so many draws. I actually think, frankly, the weather, as people know, might be a big part of it. But it also gave me sort of an itch to play GM a little bit and blow things up as much as possible. So all of this is just me kind of playing around with different players, different teams. But I think we are seeing at least one team kind of take this approach already. I think people might have seen the reports across the NWSL that Orlando has reportedly signed Lisbeth Ovalle from Tigres for a record transfer fee. As we know, the Pride are still very good this season. They're currently in third, but they have slipped from their highest heights of last year when they won the double. And it seems like they're doing something about it. Unrelated, they did see Barbara Banda have to leave that game in Kansas City this weekend. So I hope it certainly wasn't a factor probably in signing Ovalle, but something to keep an eye on. You know, that's a player that had garnered attention from some top European sides after playing her whole career thus far with Tigres. This is a high-profile pickup for a lot of money by the Pride for a good reason. U.S. fans might know Ovalle the best as the player that functionally ended Becky Sauerbrun's U.S. Women's National Team career in the Gold Cup last year when Mexico had that shocking win over the United States in the group stage. And I say that as high praise. That is probably one of the highest pieces of praise you could give a player, is that they functionally shut the book on a legend, right? We've also seen expansion teams make some moves. We've seen Denver pick up Ali Watt from the Pride. Orlando's been busy. Haley Carter, their general manager, has been busy before loaning her right back to Orlando for cap relief. So we're seeing these expansion teams that are coming in next year start to dip their toe into the actual league market as opposed to just making international signings. So we're seeing a desire. We're seeing a goal maybe for some of these teams to really make a push, as we've seen Kansas City is kind of running away with the Shield. So what can be done to make a difference in the postseason? So I think I'm going to do it. Here are some of my pitches. They're a little bit loosey-goosey, but these are some of the on-field moves that I think could get the ball rolling for something a little bit more exciting than what we've seen over the NWSL in the last couple of weeks, makes some room for a more exciting postseason. I do want to caveat some of this. This is obviously only on-field and all hypothetical. We don't even know the detailed money considerations for these teams. I don't know everyone's cap space. I don't know what these contracts are for. I cannot do perfectly balanced trades because I don't know what anyone is getting paid or what the salary cap looks like for any of these teams. I also don't know what any of these players would prefer themselves. I'm probably going to say some stuff that if you asked a player, they'd be like, I don't want to do that. And I understand. That's why this is all hypothetical. This is all about just what I would like to watch on my TV during the weekend, like a magic trick. And I'm keeping that mostly in league because I think that's fun. I think we are also seeing, again, with this playoff race beginning to widen, with only certain teams looking like they're going to be making a postseason run. I think we are going to be considering teams into more of a seller or buyer category as we go into this final stretch of the regular season. So with all that said, here are some of the moves that I would like to see. Here are some target teams, some target players, just to shake things up a little bit in Claire's NWSL world. The first one I don't think is going to surprise everybody. Number one project is Project Get Jaden Shaw out of North Carolina. It is not working in NC. She hasn't been playing particularly well. She hasn't been getting those looks with the senior team for the U.S. She's been coming off the bench recently. They are currently in between coaches after firing Sean Nahas. I just feel like this could be a cut your losses moment with a player to get them into a better situation and see what you can get back for that player that you just acquired. And it already seems like it might not be the best fit both for the team, which is currently in ninth, and for Shaw, who has not been her best self. Maybe North Carolina has a bigger plan for Shaw, but I do think that in that way, this is a player with enough upside that I think you could garner some decent offers for her and see what you could get in the transfer market. Places I would have Shaw go for peak chaos. Kind of ironically, I think she could shred in Jonas Eidevall's system in San Diego, which, as we know, is the team she just left. That's likely a non-starter at this point after she asked out. So I say, and I'm looking like up in the table, I'm not necessarily looking down. I think there are obviously some struggling teams. Any struggling team could use a talent like Jaden Shaw. But if we were talking about for peak chaos and for getting her in the mix, I say send Jaden Shaw to Gotham. I think she could become a really useful tweener for them. She's really good at getting into those wide spaces. She can play more forward or more back in that central location. Utilize her versatility and try to lock her in to a system with that high press. I think she can generate attack. I think she can go be a young star in one of the bigger NWSL markets. And I also think that Gotham has a couple free agents that they might not keep forever, as we know. And they also just have been struggling to generate consistent full 90 performances. And I think Shaw could be a great young centerpiece that even if everything doesn't pull together this year, that would be something to build for the future. So Shaw to Gotham is my number one. I would love to see that. I think it would also be fun to see her in Portland. I don't know if they necessarily need a one-to-one player like her. I mean, I think they've seen actually Olivia Moultrie step into that role a little bit more for them. But I also think that she would be a player that with Sophia Wilson out for maternity, and again, not knowing if Sophia Wilson is going to pick up that player option next season, if you could just continue to build with all of the nice pieces that they already have, I think Shaw to Portland would be an interesting long-term fit. I also frankly think that Shaw would be a ripper in LA, which leads me to kind of my second thing that I'm looking for my perfect NWSL action is I would love to see Angel City get aggressive. We talked about Angel City a lot actually at the beginning of the season, right? Like things look good. Things look promising. They had a couple high performing players. They had some young stars that we were really excited about. It looked like they were trending in the right direction, but the results since have been pretty unacceptable in LA. And I just think also the overall trajectory of the team has just not been good enough for the size of market, their resources, and who they would like to be within the landscape of the entire NWSL. They haven't registered a win since May. They continue to drop points from winning positions. Even those top performers have cooled off significantly as the team sits outside the playoff line. So there's a lot of holes that they could fill. I also don't think they've been getting a ton of availability from some of their kind of star veterans this year. I wonder if there's going to be a change of approach there at some point. And you don't hire Mark Parsons to be your sporting director unless you're interested in getting in the mix. So I think a lot of options are open for Angel City right now. It's just a matter of how you can make those deals. They already signed Iceland wingers Findas Jonsdottir over the international break, and she already has been a lovely addition for them. I think that was a great pickup. I think they should keep moving in that vein. Targets I would look at, and these are all in the league. I don't know if any of these teams are selling, but this is the call I would make. Call number one, Avery Patterson. She might have a total not for sale sign in Houston. She is obviously playing incredibly well for them. She is a rising U.S. women's national team mainstay as she's had an incredible year for them. Playoffs are unlikely though for Houston, and they are kind of still in this regeneration stage after a pretty active offseason. If they did think that they could get assets back, I think that is a call I'd be making. I think actually a couple teams should be making that call for Avery Patterson. If there's anything we learned from the Ali Sentner trade, that anything is possible. So that's one call I'd make. I would make a call to Louisville to see if any of their midfielders, if they'd be willing to part with any of their starting midfielders. Racing might similarly not be in a trading mood. That is a team that's also sitting right above the playoff line. But any of that trio of Ari Borges, Savannah DeMello, or Taylor Flint could be just incredible in LA. They have that dynamic, that free-flowing high pace that I think that Angel City likes to play, and they are so focused in on operating at a high press level. They are a tough out. I think they have the right mentality to add a level of intensity to what Angel City is trying to do in the midfield. I don't know if there's any price that Louisville would garner for one of those players, but I do think that what they have figured out in that Louisville midfield is a kind of energy that Angel City could really benefit from. And then there's another player that I think is going to come up in a couple of these is Sam Staub out of Chicago, their center back. Now that she's back from her Achilles tear, I just wonder if Chicago would be amenable to fielding offers for her. Chicago is not a team that has spent a lot of money over the last couple of years. They've been probably doing more money in than money out. I just think that Staub is a player that could make a lot of teams kind of in that mix for the playoff line a lot better immediately. And I think that Angel City is one of those teams. Imagine Staub and Sarah Gordon next to each other while Savvy King continues to build her health back up, the ability to spring possession, good long ball distribution, and cover a lot of ground. I just think that I would be making that call too. I'd say to Chicago, listen, you guys aren't going anywhere this year. This is a player that you want to do right by. And maybe she's committed to the vision in Chicago, but if she is interested in maybe making a big leap, I think Staub is a player that should be garnering a lot of offers right now. Also for Angel City, as we know, they've been able to pull some big name internationals, and I think that all of the kind of big name Americans abroad could be an option for them. I think Lindsay Horan is a feasible option for them. I don't think this would happen this year. I think she's very happy at Lyon, at least for one more year, but she has personal reasons to maybe want to get to the West Coast of the U.S. She's got a positive history with Mark Parsons. She played under him in Portland. It'd be a big, flashy move. She gets to play ostensibly under a more European style with their new manager. I don't know if this answers every question they have, but it is in the same style as some of those signings of like Julie Ertz, Amandine Henry. I think it'd be fun. It'd be a splashy thing to do. I think Horan coming back to the States is a when, not an if. And I think Angel City could be a good landing spot for her. I think you could also look at the Americans at PSG right now. You could look at Ava Gaetino or Crystal Dunn if they want to shore up that defense. I think that both of those players would be an incredible addition right away. And then the one other former NWSL player that I think might be a good fit for Angel City is who's going to draw, Adriana back into the NWSL, Former Orlando Pride Wizard. She wins everything with them last year, and then she goes and joins a club in Saudi Arabia. And I just wonder which NWSL team might be able to make the right offer to bring her back, because I think she would also be an incredible addition for them. Another thing I would like to see, another club I would like to see get a little aggressive is Portland, just because there is such a clear need for them. We talked about them last week in depth. The greatest barrier for them winning anything this year is their defense. And I think that they still have time to do something about it. I think they could shore up what they're doing at outside back. They could shore up what they're doing at center back. They have opportunities to slot in kind of a new surge of life into that defense rather than feeling like their midfielders have to cover for that back line all the time. Possible targets, I would kind of, reiterate someone like Staub, someone like Patterson, kind of those players from those teams below the playoff line that might be shopping for value. I think Angel City's Eme Vignola would be an interesting one to talk about. She is someone who at her best is a U.S. Women's National Team bubble player. She struggled to get healthy. I wonder if she is in Angel City's long-term plans, maybe someone worth reaching out for. Gotham similarly has a wealth of fullbacks that are having some trouble getting on the field. As I count, they have 4, I think, that have gotten time on the pitch this season. Reach out. See what, Bruninha is interested in. See if maybe Mandy Freeman would be amenable to a move, nearer to the end of her career than at the beginning of it. Are they really does Gotham feel good about this Jess Carter, Lily Reel pairing? What are they trying to do in terms of that rotation? They have a lot of OBs. I think that they would be able to move one. And I think that's a huge area of need for Portland. Another OB that I would reach out to Utah for is Imani Dorsey. If Utah have decided to be sellers like we saw in the Ali Sentner trade, I think Dorsey would be a great experienced player to go grab at outside back. As we know, her ceiling is U.S. Women's National Team bubble. And I just wonder if Utah would be open to something like that. And then the other player, this is the only player of this position that I kind of have floating around here, but I just wonder, going back to North Carolina, if Casey Murphy, maybe not midseason because that would be kind of crazy, but I wonder if at the end of this season, there are some offers for Casey Murphy that she might listen to in North Carolina, their starting goalkeeper. She has fallen out of the U.S. Women's National Team track in the recent years. As we said, North Carolina has kind of been mired in this mid-table slog for a while. They have changed their leadership, as we know. I'm just curious if Casey Murphy, she's just got such good mechanics, if there isn't a team that would be reaching out. And I think Portland, well, again, we talked about the Portland goalkeeper situation, and I don't think they're unhappy with it. I think they're going to keep writing that out for the rest of the season. I just wonder if Murphy's going to garner some serious offers at the end of this year. Now, looking at the opposite, I think there are a couple teams, I've implied this when talking about buyers, but I also wonder if at this point there are some teams that become sellers. I mentioned Houston for Avery Patterson. I don't know if they'd actually do this, right? I don't know if that's a player that you give up. But I do wonder if Houston at some point becomes a seller. They had a very aggressive offseason. It's been interesting to watch them. They're certainly better this year than they were last year. I don't think there's any question about that, but they're not necessarily making that concerted playoff push. Last weekend's win over Gotham notwithstanding. I wonder if they start to see themselves as a team that can make some moves, maybe for some of those players that are getting a bit of less time with them, or even those players that they've seen good returns from, but maybe not exactly what they were hoping for in terms of making a concerted push this year. A couple of players that I think would be interesting to move. I think we are still looking for the perfect landing place for Messiah Bright. I know she loves Houston off the field, so I don't know if she would want to do this, but I think Messiah Bright to a different team. I mean, I have written down here like Messiah Bright to Chicago. I think that would be really interesting. I think she would get playing time. I think seeing her combined with players like Jamise Joseph, players like Ludmilla, maybe Mallory Swanson when she returns. I think that we're still looking for that perfect landing place for Messiah Bright, who looked so interesting in the beginning of her rookie season. I wonder if they would be interested in moving maybe Kiki Van Zanten. That's a player that I have Kiki Van Zanten to Seattle. I think that would be really interesting. I think the Reign are still figuring out how to utilize their width this year. They have other problems to deal with. Seattle is very interesting to me. I don't have them in the mix here a lot because I don't think their roster is a huge problem. I actually think their roster is very balanced. I think I keep hammering it. I think their style of play is a bigger issue than the players they actually have out on the pitch. But Van Zanten would be a fun young winger to get out there to utilize that width and kind of really work in more. I know fitness is an element. I'm like not trying to, overlook serious things, but like as Me Official starts playing more, as Lynn Biondolo starts playing more, how are you going to get that service into them? And I would be really interested to see a player like that. And then the other one that I just find very interesting is Yasmin Ryan, who is a new signing for Houston this offseason. Kind of ironic because I think the team that could use her the most is Gotham, and they let her walk. So I don't know. I find Yasmin Ryan really interesting. She has moved around a lot in this league. I think because she's such a good player, I think she also made that choice to go join Houston. So that was at least nice, like to see a player who has been traded a number of times get to have that agency herself. But that's a player kind of like Messiah Bright, where I'm just so eager to see her get that one perfect place for her on the field. But maybe it seems like we haven't seen that perfect match of she's had teams where she's really played particularly well for on the field, but maybe had other desires off the field. So Yasmin Ryan, I just want to see her crush week in and week out. And I wonder if Houston would be open to hearing some offers from different teams. And then to wrap this up, this is looking even further to the future. This isn't so mid-season as it is just sort of pondering that Ali Watt deal that Denver made. I think that was a really interesting idea. I find this expansion round very interesting. They do not have an expansion draft. They do not have a college draft. So it's kind of like there are fewer rules and therefore they can do cooler things. This is where we get kind of wacky. I think both of these teams, Denver and Boston, are very uniquely placed to make some big splashes. And I challenge them to steal the headlines from the teams playing games right now. They have a wealth of money. They were given a lot of money to work with because of the lack of expansion, the lack of drafts. They are an incredible sports market. And I think they do have a desire to make a splash as soon as possible to get people excited about what's happening next year. They also have a wider array of options. As we know, they can dig into the free agency market for next year. They can dig into international transfers, some of these comp trades with other teams. So this is me just really briefly kind of creating in my mind what I think or feel like the identity of these two teams should be on the pitch. For Denver, I think an obvious one, I'm not going to be the first person to say this, but they have such a wealth of homegrown talent that they need to be hitting on every single Colorado native that they possibly can. They need to be calling Lyon for Lindsey Horan. They need to be calling Chicago for Mallory Swanson. They need to be calling Sophia Wilson herself about not going into that player option. She is functionally a free agent next year. She's even on the free agent list because it's a complete player option for next year with Portland. I think there's a real pitch to be made to both Wilson and Swanson. Like, I really do. I know that they're very settled in these clubs that they've been with for a long time. I know that they have family considerations. Obviously, they're both out on maternity leave right now, so that is a huge element of their lives at this moment. They both have large contracts that Denver would probably have to absorb or restructure to make it worth it for them financially. But I just think the pull of home, I think the fact that it is so uniquely placed in the country to be able to get to a lot of different markets, both of them have partners who travel a lot. I just think you might be able to make a real pitch that Denver is just as good, if not better, than their current situations. With Swanson, we know Chicago is in a rebuild of a rebuild of a rebuild. For Wilson, we have seen Portland kind of have their ups and downs. We're seeing Portland kind of figure out who they are without her. She might be looking for a change again with some of the uncertainty of new ownership in Portland and just what change brings. Horan, as we know, like I said, I think it's a when, not if, when she comes to the United States. There are other Colorado natives like Janine Becky, Ryan Williams. I think that those should be the initial targets because I think that that's the kind of stuff that fans really love. I also wonder if just with who their front office is, if Denver is going to be looking more at those free agents or intra-league movement rather than major international signings necessarily. I think they can put together a team of really solid NWSL players just from the free agency list alone. Grab a couple of their homegrown elite talents and make a real run of things. I mean, I mentioned Casey Murphy maybe as a possibility after this year. Maybe a team, these good NWSL players. Would Bethany Balser be interested in a move? Would Allie Schlegel be interested in a move out of Chicago? I think she's worth a shot. She's had some real nice bright spots for them. Midge Purse is going to be out of contract after this year. I mean, there are even other players. Could you pry maybe like Haley Mace away from Kansas City? I think you could come to some of these awesome Swiss Army knife players and build that into a team that makes sense and then add some elite homegrown talent on top of it. And then for Boston, the first thing I write is bring back Christy Mewis. I would love that. I would love it if they bring back Christy Mewis. Like, that is kind of a serious idea. I do think that she's out of contract right now. She might be interested in making a jump back to the hometown. But I also think Boston is in a really unique position to mine the European market due to their resources and location. It does not get easier in the United States to travel to mainland Europe than if you're in Boston, and it's a very international city because of it. I think Massachusetts natives obviously should be a priority. I mentioned Mewis, but there are other players. You got players like Lily Reel, Ali Sentnor, famously Midge Purse, all local talent, or at least have Boston ties, let's say that. But there also are some other possibilities, I think, just for them to be thinking outside the box. I wonder if they'd be interested in buying out any of Bay FC's underperforming strikers. We've seen Rachel Kunananji and Asasa Oshuala struggle this year. Bay in general has underperforming players probably on every line. The one player I haven't mentioned today for Bay FC, who I do think should be sellers, is Alyssa Mallinson. She'd be an awesome player for them to pick up as well. I don't know if Bay FC is moving her, though. She might be the best player on the whole team. I also I'd inquire with some WSL teams as well. This is like the hugest swing of all, but as we know, Michelle Adjumang, who was this huge breakout star of the Euros, is going to be on loan again from Arsenal this year. They're still kind of slowly building her up. Is there a secondary loan deal that you could offer Arsenal? Is there even just a huge outright bid that you could make? This is getting wacky, but I do think that is the mindset that they should be in, of looking at where are players moving around in the WSL, where are players moving around in France or in Spain, and how can we kind of wedge ourselves in there? You might have seen like the rumors of Beth Mead, right? How does Boston, as a brand new, incredible sports market with a lot of resources, easy to access from mainland Europe, become a player in those interactions in Europe currently? And I think that is so. I think it would be cool if Denver came in and they were like NWSL All-Stars. And I also think it would be cool if Boston came in with a real international flair. So we'll see. Some of this is stuff I'd like to see immediately. Some of this is stuff that I'd like to see nearer or farther out into the future. We'll see if anything happens this week or nothing happens at all, or if the secondary transfer window passes and then maybe the trade market heats up a little bit more. But I would love, like I said at the top of the show, I'd love for the NWSL to get a shot in the arm here. The Shield race is all but wrapped up. We're seeing a lot of teams competing for 2nd through 8th, which is always very exciting. I love the playoff race, but I just don't want anyone to get too stuck in their ways that we feel like we're seeing the same game over and over again. So very, very interested to see what teams decide to do. Those are my pitches. You can credit me if anyone picks them up. But yeah, I love playing GM. I think some motion would be warranted. And if not that, maybe some exciting results this weekend. The Late Sub is part of the Just Women Sports Network. This show is written by Claire Watkins and produced and edited by Parker Fenton. To get more of your favorite women's sports content, subscribe to the Just Women Sports newsletter and follow Just Women Sports across all your favorite channels.